We're back with this goddamn episode. This is the episode in which we meet Fluttershy's brother for the first time. And he's a despicably disgusting human being. And then, you know, he needs to get a job, and then he does, and it's great at the end. I'm going to go ahead and be nice and upfront about this. I do obviously value your all's opinions, thoughts, perspectives. So, I'm going to tell you right up front. You're going to have to convince me to not give this blue. In fact, I would actually argue this qualifies as a lamentation. In fact, if I was doing these without your guys' input, this would be a lamentation. Let's get into the episode. So, can I increase the font size? God, this is really small. Is there a way to do that? I'm trying to read my own notes here and I'm failing at it. There's got to be a way to increase font size. Like, you'd think that would be a normal thing, right? Hang on, I'm sorry. Give me a sec. This is kind of a new problem for me. This is only our second time doing this. It's apparently... Where? I don't even have that option. Okay, give me a sec. I'm just gonna sit here. You'd think this would be such an easy thing. I want to make the font bigger. There we go. There we go. I think I found it. Maybe. Are you kidding me with this crap? Okay, I didn't find it, apparently. Because why would I? That would be insanity. Why is this? Okay, I guess I'll figure that out later. Because I cannot apparently increase the font size in Notepad++. It's not an option. It's not there. I know what you're saying. Well, Lord, just go to the settings and then style configurator. And then change it there, which I did. Nothing changed. God, I just want to slug this episode in the face. And also figure out how to increase the goddamn font size! Yes, I'm angry. I'm actually angry about this episode. But also because of the fact that this is stupid. This should be really, really easy. This should be like a single button, and I can't even find a setting for this. Am I going to have to Google this later? I am. This is ridiculous. There, okay. I found something to make the font size bigger. It's complete. It's a complete garbage way to do it, but it works, so whatever. Okay. Yeah, that's what I just found, Rashcore. So we see Fluttershy's parents are demure, just like her. Yep. And the episode's tone and style is established pretty much right off the bat. So they're shy, just like her. In fact, they are actually even shyer than her. Although, that's honestly probably the last 6 seasons of her character development. And we see her reaction to the thought that Zephyr is going to come up, which is just, oh, not again. And so we understand her parents and her brother in one quick thing. He's the lazy, worthless, disgusting human being who deserves to die. And they're, sorry. He's the black sheep. And they're cool. Except, they're, even worse than her. Couple of things that came to mind as I was watching through the episode. First of all, there's a lot of cloud-focused decor around. I suppose that makes sense, especially since he's retired at this point in time. And we know, thanks to a scene later in the episode, that he actually collects clouds and used to work in the cloud factory, that obviously that's something he's into, right? It's a really small thing, but it's just a tiny little bit of characterization for the parents, which I kind of wish we had more of. Because I actually rather like the set design, for lack of a better way to call it, of their house. There's some cool stuff. In fact, one of the things I first thought, which is, of course, wrong, but one of the first things I thought was there's the chairs that have cloud underlay on them. Now, the reason this is wrong is because just the chairs have this, nothing else does. But it would be interesting, just hear me out for a second, it would be interesting if, in order to make furniture be able to sit on the clouds like they can, because remember, Pegasi need magic, their specific magic, in order to be able to stand on clouds. This has been established. Other ponies just go straight through, right? So imagine for a moment if they had to, treat the bottom of furniture, oh, I'd really like this couch. I'm going to have to get it treated in order to be able to have it. And, then they bring it in, and then it's treated, and then it can sit on the clouds. And this could still be true. It could just be something they do to, buildings, for example, or whatever. Just, I don't know, food for thought. Just some world-building thoughts that bounced around in my head while they were introducing Zephyr and explaining just how terrible of a person he was. Anyways, so there's also a little tidbit which I liked where Rainbow is reading the Daring Do book that she helped write, which is kind of cute. There's also a nice little tidbit to really help establish that Fluttershy is better than Alpha Host. Sorry. Fluttershy. I didn't mean that, Alpha Host. I wasn't ready. I was reading and talking. Thank you, Alpha Host, very, very much for the sub. Always appreciate. And thank you for a full year of support, and welcome to the Year Club. Thank you. So, the hell was I saying? Right, Fluttershy is better than her parents, and has become better. Sorry, God, I'm really turned around today. This episode has been... You ever know, for those of you not aware, when you are chemically angry, it's harder for you to think straight. Did you know that? If you ever wanted to know just how upset this episode has made me, I just wanted to share that little tidbit there. Anyways, so to show how much Fluttershy has grown and developed, there's a bit where she just makes a random comment. It's not even a big comment. It's just like a passive-aggressive thing. Maybe if you actually stuck with it for a while. And in the background, her parents go, and just react, right? Just to show how much she has developed and how much they are not this bad. They are much worse. Sorry, she has developed past that point, and they are still that bad. There we go. That's how I was trying to say that. God, I can't even construct a sentence right now. So then, I think a good word is for how I feel right now. I feel peeved. Of all the things I will give this episode, the peeved joke actually amused me. Oh, excuse my language. There's also a really brief moment with Pinkie Pie, which was probably intended as a joke, but also isn't a joke, if you pay attention. And that's the part where she says, hey, it's me, Pinkie Pie, your friend. Because, of course, Pinkie Pie is continuously worried and afraid of losing her friends, and that's kind of on brand for her. And the fact that they literally ignore her while she's doing this probably doesn't help that. Yeah, 1 HP, still there. Anyways. So far the episode's actually not terrible. Legitimately. So far the episode's just kind of, okay, I'm with it. Then at about 6 minutes and 30 seconds in, The episode loses me hard. I want to look something up real quick. I meant to do this off camera, but then I had other issues, and now I'm an idiot. So this is by Megan McCarthy, who has a huge variety of episodes under her belt. And Dave Rapp, which is a name I don't recognize. Who's this person? He did Newbie Dash, which is an episode I did not like. So, that's what I was curious about. I was wondering who wrote this one, because I didn't look that up. No, the moment Zephyr showed up, it's just, okay, he's an asshole. He's an idiot, whatever. Then... I want you to picture something you love. Not a person. A thing. Video games in general. Mega Man games. You know, a franchise. Mega Man 6, a specific game. Maybe you love cars. Or working on cars. Mechanic stuff. Maybe you love basketball. Maybe you're really into the Jets. I don't know. Maybe you're really into... cooking? Think of something, right? Now, I want you to imagine that there's something that you love. Something that is really legitimately a passion of yours. Now, I want you to imagine that Zephyr is actively, casually, neglectfully destroying the thing you love. The episode goes out of its way to try and soften this by making it things that nobody loves. Clouds. They use a fantastical example. This is very common in fiction, using some kind of a fantastical thing in order to try and make it more acceptable for the audience to embrace it, either because they're trying to get across a point or because they're trying for allegory or whatever, right? But all you have to do is replace those little jars of clouds and that flour bread with something you personally actually love. Now, rewatch that scene with that mentality. I would have actually physically slugged him. I know I say that kind of casually a lot. To be clear, actual physical violence would have happened if he took my... I've got my Game Boy games over there. I've got my NES games right down here. You know, if he took... I was showing this off during Lore Week. If he took my... For those of you who want, these aren't just cases. You know, I've actually got the original Mega Man. That is Mega Man 1 in there. Do you know how hard that is to come by? If he started wrecking and tossing these around, especially straight off the shelf, because remember, think of the framing of the specifics of the scene. If he just started taking this stuff and tossing it around, I would actually attack him in a manner that would not be pleasant. And his parents just go, oh, well, why hold on to the past? And she's just like, and the mother with her flower bed. I'm sorry, I keep focusing on the clouds. Both of them. Both the flowers are getting wrecked and trashed, and the clouds are getting wrecked and trashed and lost. Permanently lost. Go ahead and get that cloud back. Remember that one? I don't know what that one is, but I bet he did. I bet he could point... And again, let's use the parallel. One random cloud doesn't mean anything to you, just like one random NES cartridge doesn't mean anything to me. This is Mega Man 6. I could tell you where I was at in real life when I got this, the specific store I bought it from, and how much fun I had playing it with my friend Joel when I got home that day. This is not hard to understand. Forgive me for really going in on this, but this is sociopathic behavior that shows a complete disregard for the well-being and decency of any level of human society. Never mind, like this is the kind of thing that I wouldn't find acceptable if he was doing it to a stranger. Never mind a friend. Never mind his parents. Yeah, I'm sorry. Baron is correct. Just to add on to this burning pile, he is doing this to set up some studio he's going to abandon in a week. Because that's his core thread. Hang on, look. Now, The reason there is a reason other than going into this. Other than the fact that this pisses me off so much, there is a specific reason that I'm going into this. And it's the fact that from this point on, I hate him. This same scene tries to portray him. The scene doesn't even change. We're still in the same area, and less than a minute later, we cut to him trying to be portrayed in a sympathetic light. No. You have actually reached a point where I no longer have the ability to sympathize with you. The level of assholery that you have portrayed is so stark and severe in its specific implementation that I officially have pushed Zephyr into get off my screen territory. Now, on the off chance you've never heard me talk about that, let me clarify really quick. Sometimes characters are like, oh, I hate them, but not in a bad way, right? Like, there are characters that we enjoy disliking, right? But then there's characters that you just don't want to be in your fiction. That's get off the screen character. And I always make that distinction because those are two very distinct things. Like, there's a difference between someone who has, charisma and enjoyability, and it's just like, yeah, Kai Wynn is actually a perfect example. Because Kai Wynn is someone who isn't get off my screen. I know she is for some people. But Kai Wynn is someone who is just this, oh god, she's so evil, it's awesome and I love it. But this jackass needs to get off my screen. Hang on, I'm not done. But that's the big point. That is the crux of the whole episode, is this scene. Because then it switches over. The parents just kind of let this happen. We already mentioned that, but it deserves repeating. The parents were just going to roll over and let him do this. Now, that says a lot by itself. I do despise Zephyr. But when it comes to blame, honestly, I would actually say the majority of the blame is on the parents. Because when you have someone who is a doormat raising someone who is not, then that's not going to lead to a good thing. This is literally the concept of the spoiled child. The spoiled brat, if you will. This is the concept of... Have you ever been out and about in the world? Have you ever been out and seen a child who is just a straight-up brat and the parents aren't doing anything about it? I'm not saying you need to beat your kids or whatever. There's a middle ground here. But my point is, if you just let your kids walk all over you, then guess what kind of people they will grow up to be? I have seen this again, this is not fiction. I've seen this in real life many times. It's aggravating. It's kind of personally insulting, if I might be so bold. And I'm not even a parent, I'm just an uncle. So again, yeah, they do still get a majority of the blame here, and I don't want to dismiss that. It doesn't make the scene any better. It kind of makes it worse if you're thinking about it. It's just worse from a different angle now. It's over here now. It's just... Okay. So, he sucks. They suck. This then leads to Fluttershy putting her foot down. Real quick. Can you imagine Fluttershy Season 1 doing this? This is the only reason, and I will allow you to talk me out of this, but this is the only reason I would be willing to consider this episode for non-lamentation status. Because not only is Fluttershy good in this episode, we're not actually there yet, but that is foreshadowing. But this is demonstrable. It's not character growth. It's showing character growth that's already happened. There's a term for that in fiction. I can't remember what it's called. But the arc has happened, right? She has moved forwards, and showing that is important. You need to show that when it comes to fiction. Too much fiction will have a character arc and then have it never come up again. It needs to be demonstrated. You need to show that they're now over here in future episodes. You need to show how different they are and they become. MLP is actually pretty good about this. MLP is actually pretty good about having characters stick their continuity and their arcs. Not always. Sometimes they tend to forget specific lessons. Twilight. But I will give them credit on this. In fact, I actually talked about this just last week. You remember? AJ and Rarity is another good example of this. Anywho. So, Fluttershy puts her foot down and says, okay, you need to get out. Then the episode tries to make us sympathize with him. You notice I'm still talking about 3 minutes of footage here. We haven't left the same scene yet. This, of course, and in my notes, what I actually wrote down is, in my notes, real talk. I do know how horrifying it is not having someplace to live. Really, I know that stress. It sucks. But screw him! Because of the scene, we haven't left yet. It's even worse, though, because what he tries to do is he tries to manipulate them first. Oh, you don't want that, do you, Mom and Dad? Baby pouty face. I can't do a baby pouty face, but he does that. And you can tell he's crocodile tearing and just trying to manipulate them until the parents actually put their foots down. Then he actually starts to lose it a little bit for realsies. And again, if you hadn't just had him lying and deceiving me, and had him be a horrible person right before this, I might actually feel sympathy for him. And I think this is probably the biggest reason why I want to push this episode into Lamentation territory. I'm willing to talk it up to a blue. I am. But it's because of the fact that they went so extreme with establishing the point of just how terrible he is that it ruins the entire rest of the episode. It's so easy to fix this. Really. Picture the scene we just saw. I just need to move some of these things out of the way here. Get this other... Oh, whoop! Sorry, Pops. Almost lost your cloud there. I forget which one it is. Oh, this was the one with such and such. Yeah, well, don't worry. We'll find a new place for it. I just need to make some room in here for my new studio. Bam! Done! The whole episode's fixed. I'm not even joking. That one change... Have him have a level of decency and respect for others, respect for his goddamn parents, and have him still, he's still the lazy, right? He's still the walkabout. He's still kind of being a huh, but he's not being a despicable, disgusting person in the process. Rein it in. Okay. This is why I've got, how long have I been talking? Almost 20 minutes. We're at the 6-minute mark. This is awful. And yeah, I agree with Baron. I think the writers, either Megan or the other guy whose name I've already forgotten. I'll look it up. Hang on, I have it written down here. Some guy whose name... Dave Rapp. I think at least one of them has experienced this in real life. Oh, and by the way, I have two. I imagine several people in chat can think and point to individuals in their past and say, hey, that right there is someone that I've encountered just like this. It's the negligence that bothers me the most. If I could just get off topic for 1 second. Active malevolence is something this is going to sound terrible, but active malevolence and malice is something that tends to be easier for me to swallow. If Flutter Brutter was actively malicious here, it would actually make this more tolerable. But it's the fact that he doesn't care. It's kind of the Lovecraftian thing, just on a very personal level. It's the total lack of recognition. It doesn't occur to them that what they're doing is wrong because they care so little about their impact on you that it doesn't even cross their mind. And to me, that's worse. And again, I've known people like that. Lived with people like that. Not family, roommate. Okay. It's funny you bring that up, Imperial Star Destroyers. So, very next note I have in my line is, before I forget to comment on this, what he does to Rainbow is actually arguably worse, depending on your perspective. Now, I know fiction likes to portray the Pepe Le Pew thing as being cute. It's not. Doesn't matter the genders involved. This kind of behavior, what he does consistently to Rainbow up until the job that they have, which I'll talk about later, is actual sexual harassment. It's low tier, but it is there. It is in the category. It's not cute. It's also played for a laugh towards the end of the episode. And yeah, you can tell he's been doing this for years. That's another thing. We know Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy have been friends at least since very young, right? We've seen the two interacting since, in flashbacks, since flight school when they were little fillies, right? So it's not that out of bounds to presume that there has been a connection between Rainbow and Fluttershy's family for years and years and years, probably in the decade-plus range. And thus, the idea that he's been doing this for forever is exceptionally likely, especially given the way he talks about it. So, moving on, let's talk about, so he comes, he's like, I'm going to live with you, Fluttershy. She's like, okay, no problem. Now, I will give the episode credence on this point. What Fluttershy does here is arguably good parenting. Sure, I'll take you in. You need to get a job. And she doesn't just let that go. That's important. In fact, if you're paying attention, what she does is the opposite of what he usually does. He fires and forgets. She persists and maintains. I'm pretty sure that was done on purpose, but it is one of the more interesting narrative beats of the episode, is that she never stops, attempting to help him. She never just quits and throws in the towel, whereas his entire arc is that he quits immediately every time anything gets hard at all, or before he even starts. So, get a job, okay? Now, getting a job is easier to say than to do. Trust me, I know. I've talked before about how terrifying and horrible unemployment can be. Really. It's actually tied in with not necessarily having a place to live. So, I do understand that. The problem is that's not what his problem is, because he is then given a job, and his immediate reaction to being given a job is to freak out about it, and then to screw it up immediately and directly because of his own laziness. Not yet, and this, my God, we're getting back into anger territory. Do you know how many times in my life I would have sold a goddamn kidney for someone to give me a job? You know why I do this for a living? It's because I couldn't find a job at the time because of my health issues. I could not get a job. I tried. You can ask my sister. She used to drive me to interviews. So, okay, so I know manual labor sucks, right? I do. I've done manual labor recently. I've done manual labor today, actually, if you want to get down to it. But I get it. Most of the manual labor I do nowadays is either the yard work for my sister or computer stuff. But manual labor sucks. Okay, yeah, I'm with it. But it needs to be done, And again, it is, as I just indicated, better than nothing. The idea of someone saying, oh, well, I don't want to work fast food. I'll use the old cliche here. I don't know if this is true in other countries. Here in the States, there actually isn't anymore. But for a long time, there was a huge social stigma against working fast food. That was the crap jobs. That was the bottom rung of everything. Everyone was better than fast food workers. Now, working fast food is not the greatest job in the world. I'm going to go ahead and tell you from personal experience, it's not that bad. It is manual labor. And it's like any other manual labor job. In that case, it's more about, doing this kind of repetitive task, depending on what you're at. Like maybe you're in the back line, or maybe you're running expediting or whatever. Your guess is as good as mine, Imperial Star Destroyer. I'm really not sure why it exists. I've never studied that. Manual labor sucks, right? Sure, okay. And I also want to mention that there's nothing necessarily wrong with automation and streamlining, right? I do a decent amount of that, you know, now. I have a script that Zillow wrote for me that helps to expedite the process of getting the spreadsheets onto the website, right? With regards to funding. Cool. But the thing is, to use that exact example, that script that he and I worked on together, that he developed, but, you know, I was like, here, I need this, and I need this, and this. And the design of the spreadsheet and the work that put into that, that was real hard, concentrated engineering work, right? That was design and craft and all that. That's not what he does. And again, this shows the contrast between him and Fluttershy. He just says, eh. He tries the first thing that occurs to him and doesn't actually put work into the optimization, and so it turns into a total mess. And to really, really hammer this point in, when they come back in what is clearly and obviously a total mess, and what is a colossal problem, what they find is him totally ignoring it all. Strike one. And just sitting there reading a book, lazing about, and not even like in a, you know, a nervous way or anything. No, he's got his legs up, he's just chilling, everything's cool. Strike two. Then he blames the cat, strike three. Offers no apology whatsoever for what he has done, strike four. And tries to flip it around as if they should be grateful to him, strike five. Then Zephyr manipulates Spike into it, and honestly, this is just mean at this point. Oh my god. Goddamn episode. Each of these incidents has Fluttershy acting embarrassed and humiliated because this is on her. Now, this is an understated part of the episode, but needs to be mentioned. I feel the need to shine a light onto this. Because if I'm working... Let's use some manual. If I'm working on a lawn project with my sister, and I say, hey, I'm going to get Darth Medoro involved. He's awesome. It's going to work out great. And then Darth Medoro shows up and lounges about, or doesn't do the work, or makes a mess, or makes it worse. Who's to blame there? Now, the answer is, of course, both. But the point is, the actual blame, the primary blame, is on me. I vouched for him. I'm the one who said it'd be cool, and I'm the one who fought to get Mr. Medoro involved in this job. So, while Mr. Zephyr is obviously punch-worthy and needs to get the hell off my screen, the fact of the matter is, this is still Fluttershy's fault. And she knows that. Yours was the bottom line of the text when I started talking. Medoro, that's usually how I do that. You're the last person to talk. I'll show you. Yeah, if there's a reason vouching for someone is such a big deal. There's a reason vetting is a concept. So Fluttershy is putting her rep on the line and getting mudded, smeared as a consequence of this, right? And that's important because once again it shows how she is actually trying and putting real effort and legitimately, you know, at risk as a result of this. In fact, frankly, the damage to her is arguably worse than any damage that would be done to Zephyr, because he doesn't give a damn. But she's going to talk with and interact with these people on a regular basis, like probably the next day. Now, I'm going to pause for 1 second to mention the best scene in the whole episode. That's a lie. It's actually the second best scene. So, there's this pony going through the background. with the Link cap. And I noticed it immediately. I had to pause and rewind. And Link is going back, going... Link Pony's going through with a cart full of rupees. And I noticed as I was watching it the second time, the Link Pony actually has a 3/4 heart cutie mark. There you go. Best part of the episode right there. Alright, back to negativity. So, I'm kidding. Although, my next note in my notes, no joke, is, Christ, I want to slug Zephyr. So, this leads to an interesting scene. This is actually what I would consider to be the best scene in the episode, no joke. Because what happens is Rainbow Dash shows up, and she's got a job for him. Now, she hates him, clearly. And this whole thing sucks. And he's, like I said, rude to the point of harassment to her. But she's still doing this for Fluttershy, which says a lot. But more importantly, you'll also notice that this is the first time that the person she's asked is actually going to be present and on task, metaphorical whip in hand, to manage him. Now, I bring that up because earlier, Rarity and Fluttershy just left, unsupervised. And then earlier, Twilight and Fluttershy just left, unsupervised, except they left Spike. This time, they're leaving Rainbow to supervise. You notice the escalation here. And I point that out because they go off to work. We don't actually see the thing because we don't need to, because when he shows up, not only is he ranting about her, but he is covered in scorch marks, which shows that she was actually forcing him to try and actually actually work, and was 100% willing to follow through on her threat to zap him if he tried anything. Considering how zapped he looks, I'm guessing he got zapped more than once. Do I think Fluttershy even asked AJ? Actually, no, I don't. It is my opinion that that level of manual labor is something that he would never be willing to put up with. So she probably didn't even try. Now, Pinkie Pie, that's a more interesting one. But I don't know about that. So, Zephyr decides to walk out to live in the woods. Once again, this could work if I didn't hate him. Because living out on your own kinda sucks. I hate to keep bringing that up, but yeah, no, that sucks. Being homeless is not fun. I do have to add 2 asterisks here. First of all is the obvious one, Zephyr, screw him. But second of all, this is MLP. And even the woods of Equestria are paradise compared to real life. So I don't have any sympathy for him whatsoever. Like, none. I mean, I suppose technically I have negative sympathy for him, but let's just move on. Unless it's the Everfree Forest, in which case he's dead. Now, this is... Then a song happens. I don't have anything to say about that. It's my least favorite song on the show so far. And this is when we... Do I pity him? No. This is when we get to the themes. There are actually 3. This would work substantially better if not for the fact that Chucky Sleaze just subbed for 23 months. So thank you very, very much, Chucky Sleaze, for ruining this episode. I do, as always, appreciate the ruination. Thank you. If you know where you want to put that ruination towards, please let me know. So, 3 messages, right? And this is effectively the last thing I have to talk about, because at the end of the episode, he's still a stuck-up asshole, and the episode ends on a wah-wah. So we should up the wah-wah counter here. But, message number 1. Now, they only briefly touch on this one, but you remember Big Mac and Applejack? It was an episode that also I kind of liked and didn't care for. What would you know about failing? You've literally helped save Equestria like a dozen times. Now, that's not the point of the episode. It's very clear. And that could have been. They could have centered this entire episode around the idea of the underperforming brother who desperately wants to try and keep up with the big sister, who is just, you know, this amazing hero of awesome. The catch is, they've already done that, so I'm not saying they should do that, I'm just saying they could have done that, and they already did do that with Big Mac. So I can kind of see that's probably why they didn't want to go down that route. It is the kind of thing that I would sympathize with and empathize with, if not for the fact that, you know, I hate his guts. But it could have helped explain some aspects of his character. Instead, it's just a single line, and then it goes away immediately. So that brings us to the second message, which is the obvious one, the one they actually say in the episode. It is better to not try than to try and fail. I'll give you this, episode. That is an interesting message. It's not even right or wrong, as horrible as that sounds. The episode tries to portray it as wrong. The episode's point is that that is wrong. But it's hard to say that so definitively. Because there are many, many cases where it is actually legitimately just not worth even trying. And there is a uniquely horrific feeling, trust me, I know, of doing your best and putting forth your best and failing. It is a horrific feeling. We've actually talked about this before in MLP because it's come up before in MLP. I want to say PvP for some reason. So, the catch, of course, is that message, I feel like I'm repeating myself because we've talked about this recently, falls completely on its face. Why? Because that's not how he's been portrayed this entire time. There is no foreshadowing or hints about the fact that he is afraid of failure. Instead, he's just a lazy child. You know, as we talked about before, uncaring and a lack of understanding about consequence or the results of his actions. He's not someone who, you know, is afraid. Even though that is a legitimate and very real adult fear. There's a movie I covered recently. It's one of the Pixar films, I don't remember which had that as its primary theme. Oh god, what was it? I think it was Inside Out. I think. Hang on. Sorry, as I'm trying to look this up really quick. I think it's Inside Out. No, it might not be Inside Out. That's not it. It's one of the more recent ones. It doesn't matter. One of the Pixar films has this exact same theme as a concept, because it is a very adult concept, and it is a very real, mature topic. You know, actual, as I like to say, actually dark storytelling. Because there is something very real about the fear of getting out there and trying something and doing something and failing. I don't remember which. I'll talk about it sometime next year. You'll see those videos, or maybe you won't. But like I said, the episode doesn't earn it at all. So I'm not giving the episode points for that. Which leads us to the other theme. Now this theme is interesting. Because this theme is clearly 100% unintentional. So this is yet another one of those unintentional themes when it comes to MLP. And that theme is, you need to learn the basics before you try the complex. Now this sounds like a duh, but that's not Pixar, Darth Maduro, sorry. That probably sounds like a duh, but you would be surprised how many people don't really seem to understand that. In fact, I think it's more common than not that people don't understand that. They think, oh, I want to try this, and they try to jump right into it without an understanding of the basics. Now, what the basics are can vary, but you get my point, right? Imagine, let me use a personal parallel. Imagine setting out right now to speedrun, it's a really hard game to speedrun, Ocarina of Time. Now imagine you've never played Ocarina of Time at all. And that is that unintentional theme right there. Because, I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it. You're just jumping right into the final step rather than trying to build up to the final step. And like I said, people do this all the time. People do this in politics and government and economics and business and just so many different things. Never mind, like, down here at the ground level with the rest of us. Like, people who jump into hobbies, or shows, or, like just little things or whatever. Was it Onward? No, I don't think it was Onward. It's too recent. But yeah, you get my point, right? And if you pay attention, this is exactly what Zephyr is doing. He just wants to jump right into the cool stuff. He doesn't want to do all this boring stuff to get to that point. Tying back into that manual labor thing. Because, one of the things that people tend to forget is manual labor tends to be the kind of work that sets up the other work. You do all this boring work so that you can do the awesome stuff, right? I mean, that's not always true, obviously. But that is something that can be true. What's funny is this is something I've talked about a lot when it comes to writing advice. Back when people would ask me for advice, I guess people still ask me for writing advice, but people ask me for writing advice, and one of the single most common pieces of advice I've ever given to writers, to people who are getting into writing or are actively writing, is take your time, build up to stuff. I'll never forget, there was a short story I wrote, read, that someone had wrote, and they asked me for my advice on it. And on the first page, they suddenly skipped forward to something that should have been like mid-act 2. I'm not going to get into specifics, but that kind of a thing, right? Like, imagine if Empire Strikes Back starts, and you see the Star Destroyer at the start, and it shoots off the probe, and then all of a sudden Luke is fighting Vader in Cloud City. That's the kind of thing, and I'm like, no. You got to build up to that. But that's the best part of the story. That's the whole part I want to write. I know. But it doesn't mean anything. What do you mean? It's this guy, and he's doing this, and there's this. Yeah, that's nice. You know that. You need to take your time to build up to the good stuff. Otherwise, it's meaningless. This is one of the reasons I bang on so much about continuity, because continuity is part of this as well, but let's not get into that. Anyways. So then we have a song, yay, and the end, and wah, the end. Okay, so that's the episode. Oh my god, the episode. I hate this episode. This episode actually pisses me off. Now, some of you may or may not be aware that the rules for Lamentations have changed 4 years ago. That's recently, as a direct reaction to early DS9 and early TNG. Because the old rules, there's actually 3 directions. First, it was the worst. Only the worst episode of a work could be a Lamentation. So you can only have one Lamentation ever. We changed that after Voyager. So then the second thing was, as long as there was something redeeming about the episode, it couldn't be a Lamentation. But that rule went away very quickly, because that's an invalid rule. That it's very rare that you would actually have a Lamentation at that point. So then we have the modern approach. Now, we've talked about this on this show before, because we've discussed this with Spike at your service, or Princess Spike, excuse me. It has to be not bad, not awful, but terrible, and it has to have a little extra oomph at it. Because we've got Lamentation, 1 off, 2 off, 3 off, and this is how I think of it mentally. This is how I went through all of TOS and Enterprise, as well as TAS. It was this mentality, and most of TNG and TS9. So, with those rules established, is this bad? Yes. Is this terrible? Yes. Is this awful? Yes. Does it have an extra oomph? Yes. Now, the question is, does Fluttershy offset that? That is the only question that remains right now. Now, so, you know my thoughts. I've given them already. So I'm just going to listen for a moment. What the? This has been a 50-minute streamination. Good lord. So far in chat, I'm seeing one person who says that this is not a lamentation, and 2 people say it might not be a lamentation. Oh, no, I'm wrong. 2 people say no, 2 people say might. Yes, Streamination. It's okay, we never see Zephyr again that I'm aware of. Don't crush my innocence. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. The problem with Princess Spike is it didn't have the oomph. You remember? That was the only thing that saved it. Princess Spike was a one-off. This does have an oomph. That's part of the problem here. I legitimately wanted to slug him, and I wanted him to get the hell off my camera. Or my screen. So I actually disagree. This is worse than Princess Spike for me. That's why I say I have no problem giving it lamentation status. The absolute most I could be convinced is to give this deep blue. That is as high as I would be willing to go. I don't know. Like I said, I would have actually gotten legitimately physically violent if he had done that to my NES collection. Just... God damn. Well, he never would have gotten to this point, Baron, let me put it that way. Alright, hang on. I'm gonna replay the scenes with Fluttershy in my head. Give me a second. You probably think that's all of them, but it kind of isn't. The episode is much more focused on him than her. She's almost always the secondary character and a background focus of the events. In fact, she usually often shares that slot with other people. So I'm replaying the episode on fast forward. Give me a second here. Fine, I won't give it lamentation. That's... But, to be clear, I am only doing this as a compromise. I 100% think this is a lamentation. But mine is not the only voice here, you know what I mean? So, we're gonna give this deep blue. Where's Megan McCarthy? There she is. Piece of garbage episode. I am never rewatching this piece of junk. Why do I have to compromise? If I'm not willing to compromise with viewers, then why am I even discussing the ratings with you? I should just tell you what the rating is otherwise. Also, if you know anything about me whatsoever, Mr. Red, you know that I'm big on differing opinions and perspectives. And ideas, sharing, IDIC, blah, 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 blah. So with that, we're done with what I consider to be the worst episode of the series. No, seriously, of all the episodes I've seen, that is the worst, by far, by a nice chunk down there. So, with that out of the way, next is the Indian food one, which is Season 6, Episode 12, Spice Up Your Life, specifically. So, damn it, Darth Medoro. Someone go slug Darth Medoro for me real quick. Anyways, I will see you all in about 25 minutes.